Hey, hey, good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you? Good day, rather. I pray that all is well with you today. We are going to go ahead and jump into what was a really interesting read for me and has been like uh, simmering in my thoughts all night, simmering in my spirit all night. And yeah, it's going to be interesting. It was an interesting read. So we've been reading through Genesis, and we've made it to chapter 38. And I'm just checking to make sure that my audio is working properly. Yesterday it was not. And so today I want to make sure that it is. Give me 1 second. Un momento, por favor. Hello? Oh, yeah, we're good. We are good. So we're going to read a story that appeared to be like a sidetrack. And it's really interesting when you find, because you remember my constant refrain has been everything in the scriptures matter. And so when you're reading through stories, the story of Joseph, and right in the middle of this story of, or right here, not the middle so much as near the beginning of the story of Joseph's betrayal by his brothers, the story takes a bit of a twist. And there's a chapter in there that has nothing to do with Joseph. And I'm like, Father, why'd you make this turn? What is it? And we're just gonna read this morning, and I'll come back because I believe I'm supposed to use this in a different teaching somewhere this weekend. I'm not going to teach on it. We'll talk about it. Probably end of Shabbat or Sunday. But right now we're just going to read. And I'm simply going to leave you with everything you're reading in the scriptures matters. There's nothing that you can just throw away, cast aside, just just a random story that seems like okay, maybe this is just to show us, not to lift people up. People are imperfect, people make bad decisions. That's very possible. And so we'll cover it at that surface level this morning, but we're going to come back and revisit this either this evening, um before Shabbat, Saturday after Shabbat, or most likely it'll end up being Sunday night that we revisit this, just simply because I know it's a part of study that I'm supposed to do for this weekend. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our reading. We're already a little later than normal, so I had to do some work here. Again, the scriptures are on the screen for you to read along here. Read along in your own Bible. I'll be reading from the NASB version this morning again. I think I'll probably stick with that. I may, if necessary, divert back over to our KJV, which is generally the version that I use. We're gonna read through in the Net Bible one day, but for today we're just in the NASB. The Net has become my favorite, one of my favorite study tools. But let's get moving. Genesis 38, Judah and Tamar. And it came about at that time that Judah, or Yehudah, departed from his brothers and visited a certain Adulamite whose name was Hira. Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua, and he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he named him Ur. Then she conceived again and bore a son and named him Onan. She bore still another son and named him Shelah, and it was at Keziv that she bore him. Now Yehudah took a wife of Ur, his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Ur, Judah's firstborn, was evil in the sight of Yahweh, the Lord, so the Lord took his life. When brothers live to oh, okay. Now, sorry, I'm just reading. We're gonna take a little bit of a sidetrack because because of what we just saw. We saw a young woman who gets married. She marries into the family of Judah. She marries the oldest son. The son is problematic in the eyes of the Lord. The scriptures say the Lord had judged him as evil, and so his life was taken. And so that leaves this young woman uncovered. That leaves this young woman who, in those societies now, there's like, what do we do now with this woman? Because things are different in this time. And again, too, we know that women married very young. So we're more than likely looking at a very young woman in now a vulnerable situation in that the man that she married left her parents' house for and has come to live with as her husband is gone. And so where we're going to turn is we're going to look a little bit past where we are right now. We're about to take a trip over to Deuteronomy. And the reason we're going to go over there is we're going to look and see that when traditions and practices were I'll use a word and I'm using it very cautiously, but we'll say codified. When it's written down as a formal instruction for us to know that it was something that was being regulated is in Deuteronomy. So we're going to look over there and we're going to see very quickly the assignment for how families set up for these wives who were now left without husbands. And those husbands took care of them. Those husbands were responsible for them. And so now with that husband gone, she's uncovered anything could happen. But for her protection, we're about to read what it is that is set up. And it's the duty of the brother-in-law to his brother's widow. Deuteronomy 25:5 says, when brothers live together and one of them dies and has no son, because we definitely where there are people who will treat it in a way that authority and rule are in the hands of the sons and the fathers and whatnot. And I believe that the order that's set up for the family is the man is the head of the household, and I believe that these rules are in place to show that it is the responsibility, because you have that authority, you also have responsibility. And so it is the responsibility of the sons, it is the responsibility of the brothers to ensure that if you've got authority, you're also going to handle your responsibilities. And so this lists out the responsibilities that the family still has to this young woman. She's not to be just cast aside and thrown away now that her husband is gone. She is still to be cared for. She's still to be taken care of. And this is how that happens. When brothers live together and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the deceased shall not be married outside the family to a strange man. You don't just cast her out and send her out there somewhere and say, oh, well, we settled it. We found her another husband, because you don't know who that person may be. But the family knows this woman, and it's the family's responsibility to, as we're going to see here, not only take care of her, but also see to the continuation of the line in the name of the brother. And so it says, her husband's brother shall go into her and take her to himself as wife and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. It shall be that the firstborn whom she bears shall assume the name of his dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Yisrael. So we're not only not throwing her away, we're not discarding the name and the bloodline, the lineage of our brother that is gone on. And it shall be that the firstborn whom she bears shall assume the name of the dead brother, so that his name will not be blotted out from Israel. But if the man does not desire to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gates to the elders and say, my husband's brother refuses to establish a name for his brother in Israel. He is not willing to perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. Then the elders of his city shall summon him and speak to him. And if he persists and says, I do not desire to take her, then his brother's wife shall come to him in the sight of the elders, pull his sandal off his foot, and spit in his face. And she shall declare, thus it is done, the man who does not build up his brother's house. In Israel, his name shall be called the house of him whose sandal is removed. And so it is disgraceful. They're practicing it already. We're going to see in Genesis. They're practicing it already. But where we see it here in Deuteronomy, when the laws are given, that's not when that's established. That's something that's already in place. That's something that they're already doing, including it in the laws, including it in the instruction that the Father gives to the people as they're on their journey to the promised land. That's where we're seeing it, and we're going to say codified. It's written down, and it's locked in for us to know that they were regulating those things at that time. All right, so back to our story here. It says, then Yehuda said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and perform your duty as a brother-in-law to her and raise up offspring for your brother. Because again, if he refuses to handle that responsibility, it brings on disgrace for the family. Here, is gone, and he's left this young wife, and the family's just not seeing to carrying on the family in that way, but also not taking care of this young woman and seeing that she has the opportunity to bring forth children. Although her marriage is no longer in place, we're not just going to leave her out there. And we're also not going to forget the name of our brother. And so it says, Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went into his brother's wife, he wasted his seed on the ground in order not to give offspring to his brother. But what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, so he took his life also. And so I know that there are people who use that scripture to teach a lot of things. And there are some things that I believe are absolute truth that I don't necessarily believe that particular scripture is trying to tell us, okay? I do believe that that scripture is more focused on the fact that there was an order, there was a way that the daughter-in-law was to be handled, that the name of the brother was to be handled. And what Onan does here in choosing to waste his seed versus fulfill his responsibility as a brother is so displeasing in the eyes of the Lord that he then has to pay the ultimate price, and his life is taken as well. Verse 11 says, then Judah said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up. For he thought, I am afraid that he too may die like his brothers. So Tamar went and lived in her father's house. And so he doesn't have her remaining there waiting for the younger brother, who now has the responsibility of the brother-in-law to see to and care for his sister-in-law and carry on the name now of his older brother. He's a young one. So he sends her instead of her sitting there, because here's the thing, he's now lost two sons. And as it says here, the thought being, what if this third son is also going to perish? Let me not leave her here where she's sitting waiting for something that may not happen. Let me send her back into the protective care of her father. And we'll see with Judah, he's got some things going on with him as well. So yeah, he's got some stuff going on. But again, man, I wish I could really, really, really get into it the way I want to, but we will when we come back to revisit this one. Now we're just reading. And so Tamar is sent and to return to her father's house. So verse 12, now after a considerable time, Shua's daughter, the wife of Yehuda, died. And when the time of mourning was ended, Yehuda went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hira the Adulamite. Now remember, at the very beginning, we heard about that. And so it was told to Tamar, behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garments. Now, mind you, she's over here at her dad's house, and she's seeing now life is going on. Some time has passed. It's a blessing for a woman to be able to have children, particularly to be able to have a son. There's a promise that I'm going to have another husband. I'm not supposed to be sitting here in my daddy's house for the rest of forever. This man made a promise to me. What something's got to happen here. And so it was told to Tamar, behold, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. So she removed her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat in the gateway of Enam, which is on the road to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up and she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he thought she was a harlot, for she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, "Here now, let me come into you." For he did not know that she was his daughter in law. And she said, "What will you give me that you may come into me?" He said, therefore, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." She said, "Moreover, will you give a pledge until you send it?" He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" And she said, "Your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and departed and removed her veil and put on her widow's garment. When Judah sent the young goat by his friend the Adulamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he didn't find her. So now he's trying to keep his word on what he said he was going to provide. But he's already left some things in her care, as we're about to see. There's the goat and robe and cord and all of that, but also he's left some other things. Verse 21 says, he asked the men of her place, saying, "Where's the temple prostitute who was by the road at Enaim?" But they said, "There has been no temple prostitute here." So he returned to Judah and said, "I did not find her. And furthermore, the men of the place said, there has been no temple prostitute here." And we're going to take just a quick side step to talk about these temple prostitutes. And a simple search out in the world will help you with understanding. These are not women that were set up by the church by by the followers of the Lord to be hanging out serving as a prostitute at the church. The temple prostitutes or cultic prostitutes in the Bible refer to individuals involved in sexual acts within pagan religious rites. They're strongly condemned by biblical writers as idolatry. The term Kedeshah for the female or Kadesh for the male, it literally means consecrated or holy one, referring to those dedicated to fertility cults of deities like Ashtaroth. And that information is from the Biblical Archaeology Society. Now, Deuteronomy 23 and 17 through 18, it forbids Israelites to even serve as temple prostitutes and prohibits bringing their earnings into the temple, calling it an abomination. Despite this ban, we do know, though, from reading the scriptures, that there are male cult prostitutes as well. Again, these are people that were involved in pagan rituals. These were not a part of the rituals or worship that was set up of Yahweh for Yahweh. This is not that. So don't conflate that and stick that together. Oh, it says temple, so these must be related to the holy temple. In no way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, the scriptures prohibit the practice of using them, and also, so we're not. I don't believe that we're given the story of Judah believing that he was interacting with a temple prostitute to say, "Oh, temple prostitution was ordained and established and approved in the scriptures." No, it's simply a part of the story. It's what happened. But it's not prescribed as a thing to do. It's just simply this is what these people did. So, despite the ban, male cult prostitutes were mentioned during the reigns of Judah's kings, including Rehoboam and Asa, before being expelled. These practices were connected to foreign fertility worship, and you see that in 1 Kings 14:24. You see that also explained in 2 Kings 23:7, and they're used metaphorically by the prophets later on to describe Israel's unfaithfulness to Elohim. Okay, so don't believe that the because you see this man who believes that he was having intercourse with a temple prostitute to believe that that's what was set up and established and ordained as the thing to do. It is simply the thing that he did. Okay? All right. So then Judah said, "Let her keep them," the things that he had given to her. "Otherwise, we will become a laughing stock. After all, I sent this young goat, but you did not find her." And so he says, "I tried to keep my word," which is interesting because he was very key to keep his word to who he thought was a temple prostitute. But he forgot about the promise and the responsibility and the assignment to the daughter in law. She didn't forget, though. And she got out there and made some things happen. And we're about to see the outcome of that. Genesis 38:24. Now it was about 3 months later that Judah was informed, "Your daughter-in-law Tamar has played the harlot, and behold, she is also with child by harlotry." Then Judah said, "Bring her out and let her be burned." Yeah, he ready to look. He's forgotten at this point. Either he's delayed unrighteously, or he's forgotten that that there was a responsibility for this woman. But now that we found that she hasn't been sitting over there just waiting on me to be obedient, let's deal with her treacherously, or let's deal with her according to the customs of our people. Verse 25 says, "It was while she was being brought out that she sent to her father-in-law, saying, I am with child by the man to whom these things belong. And she said, Please examine and see whose signet ring and cords and staff are these. Judah recognized them and said, She is more righteous than I, inasmuch as I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not have relations with her again." And so he doesn't make her his toy or his plaything from that point forward. He simply has realized the error in his ways, because for many women, that was actually the recourse. That was actually what would end up happening for them. Not so much necessarily the talking about being burned. I'm certain that happened, because that was what he was calling for when he finds out that she's been participating in what in harlotry. But for women who were left out there unprotected, uncovered, no way to support themselves, many times they would end up in a situation similar to maybe like what we saw with Rahab, where they do end up being out there vulnerable, and the only thing they would have available to trade many times would be they would end up in harlotry, end up in prostitution, simply because they've had husbands, so no one's really, setting them up for marriage. And in that culture, there's probably not a whole lot of ways for women to make money, and especially not safe for you out there uncovered. And so, as a result, many women would find themselves in those vulnerable positions. Fortunately, she had been with her father up until that time, but many times, you know, that's not even something that happens. And so these women would be out there vulnerable and would ultimately end up working in prostitution, working in harlotry, working, being in situations where they're being used. Um, but here we go. 27 says, "It came about at the time she was giving birth." And so he doesn't end up continuing on the affair with her. He recognizes that he wronged her by not ensuring that she had a husband, but that in his eyes, what she did was more righteous, because her intention was to encounter him along the way, and he is reminded through through her actions that he dealt with her unrighteously, put her in a vulnerable position, and it failed to handle his responsibilities. So verse 27 says, "It came about at the time she was giving birth that, behold, there were twins in her womb. Moreover, it took place while she was giving birth. One put out a hand, and the midwife took and tied a scarlet thread on his hand, saying, This one came out first. But it came about as he drew back his hand that, behold, his brother came out. Then she said, What a breach you have made for yourself." So he was named Perez. So this Perez is the firstborn. Afterward, his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand, and he was named Zerah. Okay, boom. All right. Now, I'm going to stop right here. But when I come back, we're going to talk more about this story that seems like just a random side note. Seems like it's weirdly placed here in this story of Joseph. But we're going to talk about why it's not out of place. It's an appropriate turn in the conversation. We're going to talk about purpose. We're going to talk about it. But for this morning, the assignment was just to read. We'll talk about it if the Lord allows. We'll talk about it on Sunday evening, and really get further into why this story is positioned right here, why this story is important, and why, as I say all the time, while we're reading through these scriptures, the details matter, The people matter, the names matter, the places matter. Everything that you're going to read in the scriptures is important. And so you don't want to throw away anything. I know it seems like a side story. I know it seems like just a list of names and places. I know it seems like a telling of a ridiculous story that doesn't have anything to do with it. What is this story that gets used so many times to teach about masturbation? It gets taught to teach about used as justification for harlotry and sexual immorality. It gets used to show, man, look how they treated women. It gets used to highlight the patriarchy. It gets used to highlight a whole lot of things. But we're going to come back and look at a revelation that I think shows us another way that we really need to look at this story. All right. So I'll see you next time, where we'll go a little further into Judah and Tamar. But for today, you've read Genesis 38 if you've been with us this entire way. Tomorrow or the day after, you will gather with us for Genesis 39 is our next read with me. On Monday, we'll be reading about Joseph and Potiphar's wife. I won't see you tomorrow because tomorrow is Shabbat, and also we have many things happening. If you are free tomorrow, you're definitely invited to come visit with us for Shabbat service. I attend Yeshua Worship Center in Cahokia, 303 West 4th Street. It goes down at 9:45. I'm blessed tomorrow to have the opportunity to be the messenger who brings the word tomorrow, so I'm excited about that. But we look forward to seeing you Sunday night, where we're going to dig a little further into Judah and Tamar to prepare us to get back on course with Joseph's story. We're not off course, actually. We're going to see why. But that sidestep for Judah and Tamar is not just juicy in the love and hip hop sort of way. It's a story. It's about purpose. It's about what the Lord said He was going to do. He's going to do. And sometimes we just have to be brave enough to take the steps that are necessary to ensure that purpose is fulfilled. That's all. But we'll come back and we'll talk about it. So have a wonderful day. An amazing day is what I always encourage you to have. My nephew, one of my best little buddies at school, when they accomplish things, do good deeds, do well on their assignments, have good behavior, they get points. So I pray today you get so many points. I pray that you get all of the points today, and that you just go forth and have an amazing, amazing, amazing day. Until we meet again, which, as I said, should be Sunday evening. So be on the lookout if you're interested. If not, the recordings will be available here on Facebook for about 30 days. But also, we've started saving the live streams on YouTube as well, and I'll share the link for those if you're interested. But we will talk to you later. I actually set up a playlist where you can play Genesis 1 all the way through, just sort of as an help and an encouragement. My little commentary along the way. You don't have to agree with me in any of that. You don't even have to listen to those recordings. But I do encourage you to pull out your own Bible and read. Pull out your own study tools and study. There's nothing more important that we have to do than to learn about our Father. The scriptures say that people are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. And that's not talking about information. We have access to more information than we have ever had. At the touch of a button, you can pick up your little, I laugh, my brother Demetrius calls them, you have a mini computer in your hands. And so you have great access to great information all day long. How much of that time are you using, investing time in learning about how your Father thinks, how He moves, what He has done in the earth, and what He desires to do? I'm just saying. So go forth, have an amazing day, and I will see you next time. Bye.